I had just settled into my new home, an old Victorian house with creaky floors and faded wallpaper. I was excited to focus on my work as a freelance graphic designer and escape the chaos of city life. But I never expected what was about to unfold. I haven't stopped thinking about it. One night, I was jolted awake at 3 a.m. I heard faint crying outside my window. It sounded muffled, like a distant and sad wail. At first, I thought it might be a neighbor's kid, but I shrugged it off and tried to get back to sleep. As the nights rolled on, the crying returned, louder each time. It mixed with soft knocks on my front door. My heart raced with every knock, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Who would be at my door at that hour? My elderly neighbor often sat on her porch, her gaze locked onto my house. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting, but I didn't want to confront her. Then, one night, everything changed. I woke up again at 3 a.m. The crying was no longer muffled. It rang out clear, almost sounding like a child. I sat up, my heart pounding. Curiosity pulled me out of bed, and I walked across the creaky floor to check the door. Outside, there was only silence. I stepped back, uneasy. That's when I noticed something on my doorstep. It was an old teddy bear, its button eyes staring blankly up at me. I didn't remember leaving it there, and it definitely didn't belong to me. A wave of dread washed over me. I wanted to close the door and forget about it, but something kept pulling me in. Maybe the old woman had left it there. I wanted answers, but I was terrified of what they might reveal. I glanced outside and saw her sitting there, the same expression on her face. She fixed her gaze on my house, as if she was waiting for a sign from me. I felt stuck. Should I go outside and confront her? I thought about asking her about the teddy bear, but a shiver ran down my spine considering the cries I had heard. Had she been the one crying? Was I meant to understand something? Just then, she turned her head, and her eyes locked onto mine. I felt cold, rooted in place. I wanted to speak, but words wouldn't come. It was then she stood up, pointed a finger at me, and whispered something. I couldn't hear her words, but I felt that strange air around me. Then, as swiftly as she had appeared, she vanished into the night, leaving me alone with the silence and the teddy bear, still lying on my doorstep. What did she want? Was I in danger? Or had I simply overlooked something crucial? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. The following night felt different. There was dead silence as I lay in bed, my heart pounding in anticipation. I braced myself for the crying, the knocks, but nothing came. I stared at the ceiling, unsure whether to celebrate the quiet or dread what might still come. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. I wasn't sure how long I was asleep, but a loud crash startled me awake. My breath caught in my throat. It came from downstairs. I was paralyzed with fear. Who could be in my house? The logical part of me tried to reason it away. Maybe it was just an animal, or something had fallen over. But the fear gripped me as I grabbed my phone, hoping the light would somehow shield me. I crept out of bed, heart racing. The floor creaked beneath my feet as I made my way toward the stairs. My mind raced back to the teddy bear. Had it meant something? The old woman? I wanted to turn back, but the thought of someone intruding had me pressing forward. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I hesitated. I strained my ears, trying to capture a sound, but there was just an unsettling stillness. Adrenaline kicked in, and I ventured into the living room. The front door stood ajar, swinging slowly with a soft creak. My body froze. I had locked it before going to bed. I felt exposed, vulnerable. I barely dared to breathe. Could it be the old woman again? Or was something far worse waiting for me outside? Gathering my courage, I approached the door, peering through the gap into the night. It was dark, but I could see the edge of the porch light flickering. Just as I reached for the door, a soft rustle caught my attention. "Hello?" I whispered, the word barely escaping my lips. No answer. I took a tentative step forward, and that's when I spotted it, a piece of paper lying on the ground just outside my door. My heart raced. I didn't want to open the door, but I couldn't leave it there. Whatever was happening, I needed to know. I knelt down and grabbed it, stepping back into my house. The street was still, the only sound my pounding heart. The note was old, its edges worn and frayed. As I unfolded it, a chill swept over me. The words were barely legible, but I could make out some of it. Find me where it all began. 3 a.m. will always call. What did that mean? The old woman? The crying? Part of me wanted to forget it all, but the feeling of dread twisted in my gut. I couldn't shake the impression that something was waiting for me to act. As I turned to head back upstairs, I felt it, cold breath on my neck. I spun around, but nothing, just darkness. I knew this wasn't over. The night was still young, and I've realized now that whatever was happening was only just beginning. The next time the clock hit 3 a.m., I would be ready. As dawn broke, I felt the weight of exhaustion settle in. I hadn't slept well, but the morning light chased away some of my fears, at least for now. I knew I had to take this note seriously, even if it made no sense. The phrase, "where it all began," nagged at me. I needed answers. After a quick breakfast, I decided to visit the old woman's house. Maybe she could help piece together the puzzle. I grabbed my jacket and set off down the street. Every step felt heavy, as if someone was watching me from the shadows. The trees lining the road cast eerie shapes, but I tried to push that thought aside. Her house looked even more dilapidated in daylight, the paint peeling, the garden overgrown. I approached the front porch and knocked, my pulse quickening. No answer. I knocked again, feeling a mix of hope and dread. Maybe she was just hard of hearing. The door creaked open slightly, and I took a deep breath, pushing it the rest of the way. "Hello?" I called out, stepping inside. The air was musty, and dust motes danced in the light streaming through grimy windows. I felt like an intruder. "Hello?" My voice echoed through the empty rooms, but all I heard in return was silence. I moved further inside, glancing around. There were pictures on the walls, faded images of a family. But as I got closer, I noticed something. The old woman was in every photo, always in the background, watching. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned around, the feeling of unease growing. I had to find something, anything. I walked towards the back, where I saw an open door leading to what appeared to be a small garden. The door squeaked, and I felt something pull at my heart. Outside, the garden was wild yet strangely beautiful. But something caught my eye. A small, tattered teddy bear lay beneath a bush, its fur matted and dirty. My stomach churned. It looked just like the one from my nightmares. I hesitated before picking it up. As I dusted it off, I noticed a tiny tag sewn into its side. It read, "I'll wait for you at 3 a.m. Panic surged through me. I dropped the bear, my hand trembling. I had to get out of there. As I turned to leave, a figure appeared at the gate. It was the old woman. Her presence filled the space, her face shadowed but familiar. "Did you find what you were looking for?" she rasped. I froze, heart pounding. There was something in her eyes that seemed to know my fears. I just wanted to ask about the note," I stammered. "Some things can't be explained, dear, but you must be careful," she said, stepping closer. Her breath smelled of earth and decay. "What calls you will not rest." I bolted from her sight, racing back towards home. The teddy bear felt like a weight I couldn't shake off. I could feel her words echoing in my mind, warning me. The clock would hit 3 a.m. soon. I needed to prepare. But as I turned the corner onto my street, everything went dark. The sky above me swirled with ominous clouds, and a sharp chill pierced the air. I knew I was running out of time. The clouds loomed above, heavy and dark. I sprinted the last few blocks home, fighting the growing sense of dread. I slammed the door shut behind me, leaning against it for a moment, trying to catch my breath. The darkness outside felt relentless, as if it was reaching for me. The weight of the teddy bear's message pressed down on my chest. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was just past 2:30 a.m. I had half an hour. My heart raced as I tried to drown out thoughts of what might happen at 3 a.m. I needed to prepare, but I felt stifled in my own home. I paced the room, glancing at the windows that stayed stubbornly blocked by thick curtains. I wanted to close them tight, to shut out the world, and whatever was coming. But another part of me felt like I needed to see. I pulled the curtains back just a bit, peering out into the darkness. Nothing moved. It was quiet, too quiet. I shut the curtains tightly again. Then my phone buzzed, jolting me. I rushed to grab it, hoping for a distraction. It was a message from my friend Sarah. "Hey, are you okay? I'm worried. Call me." I sighed, unsure if I should respond. Sarah had always been my voice of reason, but I had no words for her. How could I explain what was happening? I pushed the phone aside, focusing instead on the shadows creeping into my little apartment. Minutes ticked by, and anxiety clawed at me. I grabbed a notebook sitting on the table and began to write everything down. Every strange thing that had happened over the last few weeks. The notes, the nightmares, the bear. It helped, somehow, to put it all down in ink. Then the clock's relentless ticking stopped. I glanced up. It was 2:59 a.m. My heart pounded as I felt a sudden pulse in the air. It felt electric, almost alive. I could hear my own breathing, soundless in the unsteady heartbeat of the moment. Suddenly, a knock rang out, jolting me upright. My throat felt dry. I moved cautiously to the door. Who could it be at this hour? I peered through the peehole, my heart racing as I recognized the old woman. Her face was drawn, her eyes wide with urgency. I hesitated. What could she possibly want? The last thing I needed was her cryptic words when I was already on edge. But as I stared, the urgency in her gaze pulled me closer. I undid the lock and opened the door just a crack. "Please, you have to listen," she whispered harshly, glancing over her shoulder. "They'll be looking for you." Before I could respond, before I even had time to process what she said, something in the night screamed. I turned, and my blood ran cold. Shadows danced outside, wild and twisted, forming shapes that didn't feel right. Then I felt a force behind me. It shoved me aside, and the door swung open wider. I stumbled back, bracing myself. The old woman was suddenly still, her face pale as the shadows squeezed through the doorway, thick and palpable, swirling like a storm. "Get inside, quickly," she ordered, panic rising in her voice. I hesitated one last moment, staring into the abyss that seemed to stretch beyond the doorframe. Then I stepped back, letting the shadows claim the space where I had stood. But the echoes of her warning reverberated inside my head. What calls you will not rest. As the shadows churned around us, I realized that 3 a.m. wasn't just a time. It was a threshold, and I was standing right on the edge of it. I stumbled back, my mind racing, as I watched the old woman position herself between me and the oncoming shadows. Her hands were outstretched, trembling slightly. I wanted to scream, to bolt for the nearest exit, but my feet felt glued to the floor. "What are they?" I managed to whisper, glancing nervously around the room as the shadows swirled closer. "They're hungry," she said urgently. "They feed off fear. You must stay calm." I couldn't suppress the rush of panic. My heart hammered against my ribcage, every instinct urging me to run. I felt like a deer caught in headlights. I glanced at the door, still ajar, exposing the darkness outside. "Close it," she commanded, her voice breaking through my panic. I did as I was told, yanking the door shut. The shadows howled outside, angry at being denied entry. "What do you want from me?" I croaked, clutching my arms as I fought to keep breathing. The old woman stepped closer, her eyes fierce now, as if she had drawn strength from the turmoil outside. "There's something they need, something that makes you their target. We have to find it, and we have to stop it before it's too late." "What are you talking about?" I stammered. "I haven't done anything." She shook her head. "It's not what you've done. It's what you might do. They know your potential. They will come for you at 3 a.m. They've been drawn to you ever since you received that bear." I felt a chill settle in my core. The bear? My mind flew back to the day I received it, the sudden unease that accompanied it. "What do you mean?" The old woman looked toward the shadows, swirling with a vibrant darkness, as if they were gathering strength. "Its message isn't just a warning. It's also a key. It connects you to them, and they want it."
"Back? Back?" I said, my voice barely audible. "I don't understand." "It's a curse," she whispered. "The bear means something to them, something you don't yet know. We need to break that connection. If not, they will take you before dawn." Suddenly, a loud crash came from the window, followed by the sound of glass shattering. My heart dropped as I spun around, my eyes wide. I felt the shadows trying to creep into the room through the jagged opening, stretching like tentacles. "You have to sit still," she shouted over the chaos. "Do not show fear. They can smell it." I nodded, but my legs felt like jelly. Just then, she grabbed my wrist tightly, pulling me away from the window. "We'll need to find the bear," she insisted. "It's the only way to shut them out, and we don't have much time." Before I could respond, I noticed a reflection in the broken glass, a figure standing behind me. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. Then the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. I could hear the shadows swirling around us, their whispers now sharper, clearer. "Find the heart of the beast," it called, a chorus of voices mingling together, echoing through the dim room. That's when I saw it, a faint glow coming from beneath the couch. My breath caught in my throat. I was about to discover something that could change everything, and I could feel the weight of the approaching dawn pressing against my chest. I stared at the glow beneath the couch, my heart racing. It pulsed softly, illuminating the dust particles swirling in the still air. What was it? Was it the bear I needed to find? I dropped to my knees, hesitating only for a moment before I reached my hand toward the light. The whispers around us grew louder, a chorus of urgency and dread piercing through the uneasy silence. "Find it," they urged. The old woman tightened her grip on my arm. "Be careful, don't touch it until I say so." "I have to know," I gasped. The fear radiating from the shadows felt palpable, like a cold, damp fog that clung to my skin. I needed to understand what was happening. As I pulled the couch away from the wall, the faint glow turned into a bright shimmer. It was a small, intricately carved bear, its eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. My breath caught again. This wasn't just any bear. It felt alive, almost sentient, as if it recognized me. "That's it! That's the heart of the beast!" the old woman exclaimed, her voice laced with urgency. "But we need to act fast before they claim you." I grabbed the bear, feeling a jolt of energy surge through me. It was warm, as if it held a pulse. The shadows hissed, their whispers now frantic, swirling around us like a storm. "What do I do with it?" I shouted, barely able to hear myself over the chaos. She moved to my side, her gaze darting back to the wailing shadows. "We need to break their connection. Hold it tightly and focus on your fear. Use it against them." "Are you serious?" I stammered. "I can't." "You have to," she urged, her voice fierce. Remember, fear is their food. You have to show them you're not afraid. I squeezed the bear, forcing myself to focus on the fear choking me. It was dark and heavy, a familiar weight. I could feel the shadows pushing against us, testing the barrier we'd created with the couch and shattered glass. I focused harder. The fear was there, but alongside it was a flicker of something else. Bravery, perhaps? As I opened my mouth to scream, I felt it shift. "Get back!" I shouted, my voice strong, confident. The shadows recoiled as if struck. They twisted and writhed, their whispers turning into a cacophony of rage. The old woman stepped closer, wild-eyed. "You're doing it! Keep going!" I thought of the bear again, how it had come into my life. I pushed that vision forward, locking onto it. "You don't own me!" I yelled, surprising myself with the force of my own voice. The warm glow from the bear intensified, blinding against the shadows. Suddenly, I felt a force surge through the room, as if a dam had burst. The shadows shrieked, their forms fracturing and dissipating into the air like smoke. I wobbled, barely able to keep my grip on the bear. But then, a piercing shriek echoed from outside. The old woman froze, her expression shifting to alarm. "They're regrouping. We don't have much time." I looked up, confusion swirling in my mind. What do we do now? Before she could respond, a loud knock came from the front door, sending tremors through my body. I realized that this was only the beginning. The connection was broken, but the shadows weren't gone for good. "Prepare yourself," she murmured, a new tension building. "It's just starting." The door trembled again, and I felt the weight of something very different pressing against us. The knock came again, louder this time, as if someone wanted in. I stood frozen, the carved bear clutched tightly in my hands. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out the frantic whispers of the shadows. They seemed to recoil momentarily, sizing up the new threat. The door, a thin barrier between us and whatever waited outside. "What is it?" I whispered, glancing at the old woman. She was staring intently at the door, her face pale. "Who is it?" "Stay quiet," she hissed, pressing a finger to her lips. "We can't alert them." The room felt charged, as if filled with electricity. I could sense the shadows shifting, their presence tangling in the air. I took a deep breath, willing my trembling hands to steady. Another knock echoed, urgent and demanding. "Open up," a voice called from the other side, deep and raspy. "I need to get in." "Who that?" I asked, my voice scarcely a whisper. Panic bubbled inside me as I stepped back, pressing against the wall. I didn't recognize the voice. It sounded familiar, yet foreign. "It could be a trick," the old woman warned. "Do not let them in, no matter what." But the voice continued, growing more insistent. "I know you're in there. Let me in. It's them. They're coming." A chill ran down my spine. Who was coming? Were they part of the shadows? I should have felt safe inside, but dread seeped into my bones. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something dark. "Do you know this person?" I asked, my eyes darting to the old woman's face. "No, but I can feel it. They're not what they seem." The bear pulsed in my grip, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold certainty gripping my heart. I had to make a choice. Should I open the door and risk everything, or should we stay hidden and hope the knockers went away? Another hard knock rattled the door, breaking the momentary silence. "Please, I can help you," the voice softened, but hung heavy with urgency. "I have the answers. You need the bear. He'll protect you." I blinked, an odd sense of recognition sparking in my mind. The bear? Could it really protect me? I felt an instinctive pull to believe the voice, to trust that it wasn't lying. But a creeping doubt held me back. "What do I do?" I breathed out, glancing back at the old woman. Her expression was grim, and I could see the conflict warring in her eyes. "Don't fall for it," she urged. "We must defend ourselves against whatever is out there. Do not let them manipulate your fear." A sudden crash echoed outside, breaking the tension like glass shattering. The sound sent shards of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I glanced at the window. Dark shapes were moving beyond the glass, shadows blending into the night. "Get ready," the old woman commanded. "We need to stick together." But before I could even respond, the door flew open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the streetlight, a shadow among shadows, with only a hint of humanity. My heart raced as I saw the face. It was someone I recognized, but I couldn't place them. Their eyes were wide, desperate. "You have to trust me. They've come to take you." But was this really a friend, or was my fear making the choice for me? Just as a realization washed over me, something behind the figure shifted. More shadows poured from the darkness, swirling like a tempest. And there I stood, between fear and the unknown, my only weapon, the carved bear, pulsing in my hands. "Close the door," I shouted, panic rising in my chest. But it was too late. They were inside. I stumbled back in terror as the figure crossed the threshold, dragging the shadows in with them. The room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. My breath quickened, and I gripped the bear tighter, wishing I could turn it into a shield against whatever this was. "Get back!" I shouted, hoping to sound brave. I didn't even know if it was working. The shadows encroached, swirling around the figure like smoke. I couldn't see their features clearly, but they loomed like a storm waiting to break. "Stop! You don't understand!" the figure chained, hands held up in surrender. "I'm not here to harm you. I came to warn you." "Warn us?" The old woman stepped forward, her voice steady but her hands trembling at her sides. "From what? Who are you?" She didn't need to ask. I could feel the answer lurking in the room, whispering dread into my mind. The shadows were alive, and their hunger was palpable. "They're closer than you think," the figure said, voice rising in urgency. "They're searching for you. They want the bear." I felt my stomach drop. Maybe that voice was real after all. "Why? What do they want with it?" "Power," the figure replied, taking a step closer, shadows parting as if afraid to touch them. "It holds a connection. The bear is a vessel, and they want to control it. You need to hide. We need to move." Panic fluttered in my chest. Everything blurred together. Can I really trust this person? I glanced at the old woman, her face lined with worry, and back at the figure who seemed desperate, yet something about them felt eerily familiar. The bear warmed in my grip again, urging me to listen. "How do you know this?" "I've seen them," the figure insisted, their voice low. "I've been out there. I've witnessed their power." Suddenly, the lights flickered overhead, then went out, plunging us into darkness. My heart raced as shadows danced in every corner of the room. I could almost hear the whispers growing louder, though I couldn't make out their words. Something crashed again beyond the door. It sounded like glass. A scream lodged itself in my throat. I stepped toward the old woman, my heart pounding. "What do we do?" "Trust your instincts," she said, pushing me forward. "If they want the bear, we can't let them have it. We need to find a way out." But before I could respond, a cool breeze swept in from the broken window. I turned, feeling something behind me. A dark silhouette took shape, creeping closer. "I can help you," the figure urged, their voice now mixed with fear. "But we have to go, right now." Someone was now in the house, and whatever they were wouldn't stop until they found me. "Go!" the old woman yelled, snapping me out of my panic. "Run!" As I bolted for the door, the shadow lunged, and I could only hope the bear was more than just wood and carvings, that it could protect us from what lurked in the darkness. Outside, the night was still thick with uncertainty, but the chase had begun.
The cool night air hit me like a wave as I burst through the door. I stumbled onto the grass, my feet barely finding their ground. The figure followed closely, their presence still cloaked in shadow. The old woman's hand was on my shoulder, and together we ran toward the tree line that bordered the yard. "Where are we going?" I gasped, glancing back at the house. "What if they follow us?" "They will," the figure said, urgency lacing their voice. "We don't have much time. They can sense the bear. Hurry!" I clutched the bear tightly, its warmth a stark contrast to the chilling wind. As we sprinted across the yard, a chilling howl pierced the silence, echoing through the night air. It felt like a warning, a summons from the very darkness that had intruded in our lives. I couldn't shake a feeling of dread pooling in my stomach. "Once we reach the trees, we'll be safe for a moment," the old woman said, breathing heavily. "Then we can figure out what to do next." I didn't reply. I was too busy trying to keep my lungs from bursting. The shadows behind us were relentless, creeping along the ground like dark tendrils reaching out for our fleeing forms. Just as we reached the edge of the tree line, I heard a voice, low and rumbling. "You think you can escape." It clawed its way through the air, wrapping around me like a chill. My heart slammed in my chest as I froze for a split second. "We can't stop," the figure shouted, pulling me forward. "Go!" We plunged into the woods, branches snagging at our clothes. I could barely make out the outlines of trees swaying in the dark. Every rustle in the underbrush sent shivers skidding down my spine. I glanced back just in time to see a solid mass of shadows bursting out from the direction of the house. "Keep moving," the old woman urged, her voice steady despite the chaos. I ran harder, but the shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, racing after us. I felt as if I could reach out and touch them, almost as if they were alive, hungry. After what felt like an eternity, we broke into a small clearing. The moonlight filtered down, illuminating a small, ancient-looking structure. It looked like a shrine, or maybe an abandoned outpost. The figure stopped, panting and turning to face us. "We need to go inside." "Why?" I asked, doubt creeping in. "What's in there?" "I can protect you, but you have to trust me," the figure insisted, shifting nervously. "They won't dare come close to this place. The bear, it has power here." The old woman looked at me with her eyes steady and unwavering. "I think we should go inside. We don't have another option." Before I could reply, a roar erupted from the forest. It was the same chilling voice. Now, closer. I could feel the ground trembling beneath my feet. The figure grabbed my wrist, leading me toward the entrance. As we stepped through the threshold, I stole one last glance back into the darkened woods. That's when I saw it, eyes, red as fire, watching us from the shadows. Then everything went dark as the door creaked shut behind us. I felt the weight of the world pressing against me, as if the shadows were closing in. The figure turned to face us, their features finally illuminated in the dim light, and what I saw sent a wave of confusion ripping through me. I knew this face, who they were, but what it meant only raised more questions. The figure's face came into the dim light, and my heart stuttered. It was someone I once knew, a childhood friend I'd lost touch with years ago. "Elliot?" I gasped, disbelief flooding my mind. "What are you doing here?" "There's no time for explanations," he said, urgency in his tone. "You have to listen to me. We need to reinforce the entrance." I glanced around the small structure, noting the crumbling walls and the faint hieroglyphs carved into the stone. It felt ancient and alive, almost humming with energy, but I could still sense the shadows looming outside, pulsating like a predator just beyond reach. They were waiting. "The bear, it's connected to this place, to them," Elliot continued, pointing toward the carved bear still clutched in my hands. I tightened my grip, feeling its warmth bleed into my fingertips. "You need to place it in the center of the room. It'll create a barrier." "What barrier? A barrier from whom?" I stammered. "The shadows," said the old woman, her voice surprisingly gentle yet insistent. "Trust him. I know he bears a legacy hidden from you." With my heart racing, I looked between Elliot and the old woman, searching for any hint of deception. But there was none, only determination. Slowly, I stepped forward and placed the bear on the cold, uneven ground in the center of the room as directed. Elliot began tracing the air around it with his hands, whispering words I couldn't comprehend. The shadows outside roared in discontent, shrieking against the barrier that began to glow with a warm light. A line of shimmering energy pulsed outward from the bear, drawn against the darkness as if vying for dominance. "Stay close," the old woman said, positioning herself beside Elliot. "Don't let your fear take hold again." I nodded, feeling the electric energy in the air. The shadows shrieked louder, reverberating as they slammed against the barrier, but it held strong. I could feel their restless energy intensifying, as if they were desperate to reclaim what was theirs. "What do we do next?" I asked, my voice shaking despite the barrier. Elliot glanced over his shoulder at me, eyes serious but relieved. "Next, we must confront the source of their power. The bear isn't just a vessel, it's a key to understanding your past. You need to recognize what you're truly up against." "Me?" I echoed, bewildered. "Yes, you. The shadows are tied to an ancient fear, one passed down through generations. You need to embrace your strength, face your fears head on. Only then can we sever their hold on you." A chill settled deep in my bones, and the urgency of the moment weighed heavily on me. My past had always been a mixture of traumas and memories laced with fear. But could I really confront them? As if sensing my hesitation, the old woman's gaze bore into me. "You've already begun. Remember the breath of courage you found before? Embrace it now." The shadows screamed outside, their voices merging into a dissonant chorus. I took a breath, steeling myself against the rising tide of uncertainty. "All right," I whispered, summoning the strength I didn't know I had. "What do I need to do?" "Close your eyes," Elliot instructed. "Focus. Envision diving into those moments that haunt you. Take the bear with you. Link it to your memories." As I closed my eyes, the world around me dissolved, and I felt a rush of darkness sweep through. In that swirling void, memories flickered to life, each one a moment where fear had reigned, shadows cast upon my heart. I stood in front of my younger self, small and frail, trembling in fear of shadows lurking in corners, storms raging in my mind. But this time I felt support close by. The warmth of the bear grounded me. "Face them," Elliot's voice echoed in the distance. "It's not just a confrontation, it's a release." With resolve building inside me, I stepped forward, ready to challenge the course of fears that had long kept me shackled. And just beyond the mist of memory, I found that the shadows weren't foes. They were fragments of me. Fragments of fears I'd tucked away, responses to pain, loneliness, and rejection. "Enough!" I shouted into the void, my voice ringing through the haze. "I accept you as part of me, but you will no longer control my fate." With that proclamation, a surge of energy pulsed through the darkness, causing it to ripple and shift. I held the bear tightly, feeling its pulse echoing in alignment with my own heart. The shadow screeched in anger, but I stood firm, shaped by past fears yet emboldened to fight. I could feel the barrier strengthening, and I knew that the past was not behind me. It was a part of my present, and I would not let it define my future. And in that moment of clarity, everything shifted. The connection between the shadows and me was irrevocably altered, severed like a frayed rope. As the shadows began to retreat, a newfound liberating light flooded the room. I opened my eyes to find the old woman and Elliot smiling softly, relief washing over their faces. But as we stood in the fading darkness, the lingering question remained heavy in the air. Had I merely pushed them back, or did something darker yet lie in wait? I was free, at least for now, but I could still feel the remnants of their presence,
lurking as I stepped back into the world. As dawn broke, illuminating our surroundings, I felt the truth of my journey reverberate in the stillness. I could never know everything. The mysteries of the shadows would ripple in the corners of my mind. This wasn't the end, but perhaps it was a new beginning. And as I stepped outside into the soft morning light, I realized that I was no longer just a victim of fear. I was a survivor, a warrior ready to embrace what came next.